But first, I wanted to hear from someone from the local newspaper to kind of get a broad overview of the what goes on in Randolph, Vermont. And joining me from the Herald of Randolph is Dylan Kelley. And Dylan, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here.
And tell me a little bit about the overall trajectory here. First off, I mean, Randolph, a few years ago, I think it had multiple fires and was really kind of down on its luck, it seemed, for a while, but it has had some revitalization going on in recent times. And give me a sense of the overall trends here.
Well, the fires that you mentioned, they happened when I was a kid. I grew up actually in Chelsea, so it was nice to shout out to the 605 people.
Shout out to Chelsea.
And but the fires that happened, a bunch of businesses right in the middle of downtown Randolph were devastated by a series of pretty much consecutive fires just about 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we've had a couple of fires since then. So the business community in Randolph has been trying to kind of figure out how to manage things downtown. There have been a number of businesses that have closed down in the past 12 to 18 months. Wiggett's Auto, a little bit up the road from us, closed down relatively recently. And the big one used to be Ben Franklin's, and then it was Balmain's. They were open right in the middle of downtown for a long, long period of time. People going back generations would come into the middle of downtown and visit Balmain's, and that business just this past spring, I believe, closed their doors, and now we have a relatively large empty space in the middle of downtown that people are trying to figure out what to do with, and they're tossing ideas around. But there are also good things that are happening. There's Chef's Market, which is a very wonderful marketplace, has moved into downtown, into the old train station, and a lot of people are patronizing that business and a number of other businesses in the area. So there's an interesting kind of dynamic of people kind of feeling out this uncertainty, but also exploring the possibilities that exist when you have some kind of empty canvases that you can work with.
Yeah, that's interesting. I just want to say I'm personally a little disappointed to hear Balmain's went out, because I used to love that store. My wife and I would come down. We live in Montpelier and shop at Balmain's because they just had a really nice variety of stuff. And I remember she said a couple times, we got to get them to open a branch in Montpelier because that's save us a trip, I guess. And it's kind of a rare thing these days to have a department store downtown and a place where you can go and get anything from kitchenwares to a new pair of jeans. That used to be an important feature of a lot of communities, and unfortunately, I think that has changed in recent times. I'm guessing that some of that the difficulty in the retail world, of course, it ties to the fact that so much shopping these days is done online. I mean, people are going on Amazon and on all the other retailers who have their websites all up and running, and that seems to be the mainstream way to go shopping these days. So, of course, even a lot of the outlying shopping malls that people worried about 20 years ago are now hurting themselves. So evolution marches on, I guess, in that retail world. Tell me a little bit about the school situation here, Dylan Kelley from the Herald of Randolph, because I know that there have been significant changes in this area relating to Act 46 and how the local schools are administered and operating, and are any of them talking about actually physically closing?
Well, a few schools have actually closed. We're diving right kind of into the prickly issues that have been striking the White River Valley this morning. My old high school, Chelsea High School, closed down. Now it's operating just as an elementary school and middle school. Whitcomb High School over in Bethel, they closed their doors as part of Act 46 and kind of merged with a couple of other different schools, and now there's the White River Valley School District, which is based out of the former South Royalton campus of South Royalton School. So now that functions as a high school, pulling in students from a couple of different towns, and formerly Whitcomb Building is now Bethel Elementary and Middle School, or White River Valley Elementary and Middle School. So elementary and middle school students going to one campus, high schoolers are going to another campus. Chelsea High School is closed down, Rochester High School is closed down. And so there's a lot of different kind of facets of Act 46 that have been playing themselves out, and there's a number of votes and then revotes on the revotes and then petitions to revote. So there's a full kind of tide that came in and went out with Act 46, and people are still now, even as the school year is underway, are kind of trying to wrap their heads around what does it mean to graduate from one school and not another school? What does that do to the community identity? What does it mean for school colors or even the athletic banners of all these people in the 1,000 Point Club for the basketball teams? How are they managing their legacy? And so a lot of people are still trying to figure out how to manage all this stuff.
And I mean, it's got to be a tough thing, but I would just wonder, are people in the communities, what's the mood about it all? Is it are people saying, well, you know, these changes kind of needed to happen, and so we're grateful that somebody lit a fire on us under us and made them happen, or are they people kind of angry about it? Or what's the general reception of all this stuff?
All of the above,
Yeah.
in every level of intensity that you can imagine. There are people who are really, really assertive in saying this needed to happen, it had to happen, it's a good thing that it happened, it's good for the students, it's good for the quality of education. And there are also folks who are as far away from them in terms of their position as you can imagine, who are pretty upset and are still trying to wrap their heads around how Act 46 has changed their lives and how it's going to change the lives of the students in the area. And so there's still very much a very active discussion about what the enduring legacy of Act 46 is and what the enduring legacy for a lot of these schools are, especially schools like Chelsea, which, you know, now shuttered. You know, how do you manage that as a town when the town is relatively small and the school is really the center of the entire town? How do you reconcile those things in terms of what your students' educational experience is, and what does that mean for the town and the people growing up in that town and the people who still live in that town?
So just so I understand, so now the high school students from Chelsea are going where?
They have school choice, so they can go anywhere they want. But then that, again, presents its own challenges because you might be able to attend anywhere you want, but how are you going to get there?
Yeah, there's
a lot of working class folks all across the White River Valley, and, you know as well as anyone else that when you go to fill up the gas tank, it puts a punch in your wallet, and so managing those things as well is another challenge.
Yeah, and it is going to lead to more transportation, and frankly, I've thought some enterprising media outlet out there will probably come up with a story on the carbon footprint of Act 46 at some point.
Yeah, that's been something I've been wondering about.
I mean, it is sort of a strange thing to say we're all trying to cut down on our, unnecessary driving to save the environment, and at the same time we're adding more driving because we are consolidating school districts. So it's always a balancing act. And,
there are very few things that Act 46 doesn't touch in the White River Valley in one form or another.
Yeah, and of course these small towns, a lot of them, the sort of main economic and cultural activity that goes on in the town is the school. And so that's got to be hard, and I certainly I have a lot of empathy for the folks who are having a difficult time with this, because I certainly hear from them quite a bit as a radio guy and as somebody who's worked as a reporter in Vermont, and I understand it. I know that change is hard sometimes, and so. Well, Dylan Kelley, unfortunately, that's about all the time we have for this segment of the program. Is really good to get the headline stories out of you for the Randolph area, and it's a good way to set up the rest of the program here this morning. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, I had a great time.